This YouTube is going to be about sig figs, and in order to properly use sig figs, you got to be able to identify them. So I'm first going to go over the three rules that we covered in trimester 1 of just identifying sig figs. And then after that, I'll go over the two rules that we have, the one for adding, subtracting, and then for multiplying, dividing, because there's different sets of rounding rules for each. So sig figs, remember, is a way of rounding your answer properly. The first rule is that all non-zero digits are significant. Example, all the counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, goes all the way to 9. The only thing that might not be significant is a 0. Everything else is always significant. Rule 2 is the goalpost rule. Let's see if I straighten it out. Zeros that are between sig figs are significant. I refer to this as a goalpost rule. I've given you two examples here. You can see that the zeros in this example here are between sig figs. Remember, the sig figs don't have to be touching the zeros in order. As long as there's a sig fig to the left, sig fig to the right, everything in between is also significant. Another example here, all three of these zeros fall under the goalpost rule because there are sig figs on both sides. Rule 3, zeros that are both to the right of the decimal and final are significant. They have to be both. It's not one or the other. They both have to be to the right of the decimal point. Here's the decimal point, to the right, and final, the very last digit. This is to the right, but it's not final, so it's not significant. This 0 is to the right of the decimal point and final, so it is significant. So those are your three rules that we use for identifying sig figs. So first you got to be able to identify them, which I hope by now you should be able to do that. The tricky part, and some of you struggle with, and that's why we're doing a little more practice with, is actually rounding your answers and calculations. So there's two different rules. One is for adding, subtracting. The other one's for multiplying and dividing. So we first will just cover the rule for adding and subtracting. And when I say measurement, I'm talking about the numbers that you are calculating, whether they are the decimal points, scientific notation, doesn't really matter. Measurements are the ones that you're either adding or subtracting, the numbers. So the measurement, or the number with the least amount of sig figs to the right of the decimal, remember, to the right of the decimal, will determine how many sig figs your answer will have to the right of the decimal. Remember, when you add or subtract, it's all about to the right of the decimal, to the right of the decimal, to the right of the decimal. So that is that. For multiplying and dividing, you're going to look at the measurement with the fewest total sig figs. So we're no longer looking only to the right of the decimal. We're looking at the entire number. Okay, how many sig figs are total in that number or in that measurement? The measurement with the fewest total sig figs will determine how many total sig figs are in your answer. So these are two different set of rules for rounding. One is for multiplication division, the other one is for addition and subtraction.